The morning sun cast long shadows across the research camp on Kepler 442b. As Dr. Maya Rodriguez checked her equipment one final time, the planet looked peaceful enough with its purple grass and twin moons still visible in the pale sky. Maya had been studying alien worlds for 8 years, but this place felt different. The air carried strange scents, and the local animals made sounds she had never heard before. Maya packed her scanner and sample containers while her team prepared for another survey mission. Kate Murphy worked on the communications gear with quick, efficient movements. Her red hair caught the sunlight as she tested each frequency band. Lisa Chen cleaned her sidearm and checked the power cells twice. The security officer never took chances when they ventured into unexplored territory. Their newest team members stood near the forest edge, watching the tree line with large silver eyes. Lirale Star Whisper belonged to the Sylvani race that had contacted humans just 6 months ago. Her people looked like the elves from old Earth stories, with pointed ears and graceful movements. Her skin had a crystal-like quality that seemed to glow in the morning light. The Sylvani had evolved on forest worlds, where they used telepathic abilities instead of weapons for survival. They could sense the emotions and intentions of most living creatures within 100 meters. Lirale served as their scout and translator when dealing with the local wildlife. Maya approached the young alien woman, who stood barely 5 feet. Tall. Lirale wore the standard research uniform, but it hung loose on her thin frame. Her people did not build muscle mass like humans did. They relied on speed and mental abilities when facing danger. The team had been mapping predator territories for the past 2 weeks. The planet hosted several dangerous species that could threaten the human colony of New Haven, located 50 kilometers south. Maya needed to understand which areas were safe for expansion and which ones required military protection. Lirale turned as Maya approached, and her expression showed concern. The Sylvani communicated through a combination of spoken words and telepathic impressions. Her voice carried musical tones that the universal translator converted into clear English. She spoke about sensing something wrong in the deep forest. The normal background thoughts of small animals had gone quiet over the past hour. Large predators sometimes created dead zones in the telepathic field when they hunted. Her people had learned to recognize these warning signs over thousands of years. Maya studied the sensor readings on her handheld device. The atmospheric conditions looked normal, and she detected no unusual energy signatures. However, she trusted Lirale enough to take the warning seriously. The Sylvani had prevented 3 dangerous encounters during their partnership. Kate finished her equipment check and joined them near the forest entrance. She reported that all communication links to the main colony were working properly. The emergency beacon could summon help within 2 hours if they ran into serious trouble. Lisa completed her weapon inspection and approached the group. She carried both energy weapons and chemical explosives designed to work against armored targets. The security protocols required her to prepare for anything they might encounter in unexplored territory. The team entered the forest along a game trail that wound between massive trees with black bark and silver leaves. The canopy blocked most of the sunlight, creating an environment of deep shadows and strange colors. Bioluminescent fungi grew on the tree trunks, providing patches of blue and green light. Maya collected plant samples, while Lirale monitored the local wildlife through her telepathic senses. Kate maintained communication with the base camp, and Lisa watched for potential threats. They had developed efficient teamwork during their previous missions together. After 3 hours of travel, they discovered enormous claw marks carved deep into a tree trunk. The gouges measured nearly 2 feet long and showed signs of being fresh. Maya took detailed photographs while Lisa examined the surrounding area for tracks. The footprints they found showed a bipedal creature with claws on both hands and feet. The stride length suggested something much larger than any known predator species. Each print measured 18 inches long and showed deep impressions indicating tremendous weight. Lirale studied the tracks with growing alarm. Her telepathic abilities could sometimes pick up emotional residue from areas where strong feelings had occurred. She sensed hunger and intelligence combined with something that made her silver skin turn pale. The creature that made these tracks was not just a simple predator driven by instinct. It possessed enough intelligence to plan and strategize. Worse yet, it seemed to take pleasure in the hunt itself, rather than just seeking food for survival. Maya recorded the measurements and took soil samples from the prints. The depth and clarity suggested the tracks were less than 6 hours old. Whatever made them might still be in the immediate area. Kate tried to contact the base camp, but found interference blocking the signal. The forest seemed to absorb radio waves in ways that made long-range communication difficult. She switched to the emergency beacon frequency, but that also showed reduced effectiveness. Lisa found more signs of the creature, including broken branches at heights that suggested it stood 12 feet tall. Scrape marks on rocks showed where it had sharpened its claws. The damage patterns indicated systematic behavior rather than random animal activity. The team decided to establish a temporary camp in a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. Maya wanted to study the tracks more carefully, while Kate worked on improving their communication range. Lisa began setting up perimeter sensors that would alert them to approaching large animals. As afternoon turned to evening, Lirelei became increasingly nervous. Her telepathic senses detected something moving through the forest in a wide circle around their position. The creature seemed to be studying them while staying just beyond the range of clear detection. Maya noticed that the local wildlife had gone completely silent. No bird calls or insect noises disturbed the unnatural quiet that had settled over the forest. Even the wind seemed to have stopped moving through the trees. Kate managed to send a brief status report to base camp before the interference returned, stronger than before. Something was actively jamming their communications, rather than just absorbing the signals. Lisa activated all her sensors and checked her weapons again. The sun began setting behind the canopy, casting the forest into deeper shadows. Lirelei pointed toward the tree line, where she sensed focused attention directed at their camp. Something large and intelligent was watching them with patient hunger. Maya felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up as primitive human instincts warned of nearby danger. After millions of years of evolution, some threats still triggered automatic responses. Her heart rate increased, and her muscles tensed for action. Lisa drew her sidearm and switched on the targeting system. Kate activated the emergency beacon, hoping someone would receive their distress signal. Lirelei moved closer to Maya, seeking the comfort of human presence. In the gathering darkness, 12 feet of armored predator emerged from the shadows with eyes that reflected the campfire light. The Shadow Maw had found its prey and decided the time for hunting had arrived. The Shadow Maw stepped into the firelight with movements that combined grace and terrible power. Its reptilian body stood 12 feet tall, on muscular legs that ended in clawed feet. Dark scales covered its hide with patterns that shifted and changed like active camouflage. The creature had been watching them for hours, while deciding which target offered the easiest kill. Massive jaws opened to reveal rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone. Each fang measured 6 inches, long and curved slightly backward to prevent prey from escaping once caught. The Shadow Maw had ruled the apex of this world for millions of years, with few creatures daring to challenge its dominance. Yellow eyes with vertical pupils focused on each member of the research team in turn. The predator evaluated their size and potential threat level with the calculating intelligence of a master hunter. Its gaze lingered longest on Lirelei, whose slender frame and obvious fear marked her as the most vulnerable target. Lirelei froze completely as telepathic contact with the creature flooded her mind with images of previous kills. She saw through its memories of stalking prey through dark forests, and the satisfaction it felt when claws found soft flesh. The intensity of its predatory instincts overwhelmed her gentle nature and left her unable to move or speak. Kate scrambled backward toward the equipment packs while reaching for the emergency beacon. Her hands shook as she tried to activate the device, but her fingers kept slipping on the controls. The communications gear scattered across the ground as she knocked over the portable table in her haste to escape. Lisa raised her sidearm and took aim at the creature's center mass, but she knew conventional weapons would have little effect on its armored hide. Energy weapons worked better against organic targets, but this predator had evolved natural defenses against most attacks. She needed time to access her heavy equipment. The Shadow Maw crouched low and prepared to spring forward. Its powerful leg muscles tensed while razor-sharp claws extended from both hands and feet. The creature had perfected this attack over countless hunts and knew exactly how to bring down prey 3 times its size. Maya stepped directly between the charging predator and Lirelei without hesitation. She held nothing but a plasma torch designed for cutting metal samples and her own determination to protect her friend. The small human woman spread her arms wide to shield the Sylvani behind her, while staring directly into the creature's yellow eyes. The Shadow Maw skidded to a halt, just 10 feet away, as confusion replaced its hunting instincts. In millions of years of evolution, it had never encountered prey that moved toward danger instead of away from it. Every natural response told it that smaller creatures should run when faced with superior predators. Maya ignited the plasma torch and held it steady, despite the trembling in her hands. The blue flame cast harsh shadows on her face while she maintained eye contact with the massive predator. She began speaking in loud, clear tones that carried across the silent forest. Her words included standard phrases about peaceful intentions, mixed with creative human profanity that expressed exactly what she thought about creatures that threatened her friends. The universal translator struggled to process some of the more colorful expressions while converting her speech into audio patterns the Shadow Maw could understand. Through Lirelei telepathic connection, the predator suddenly experienced something completely foreign to its nature. Maya's emotional state flooded through the mental link, revealing not fear, but controlled anger and absolute determination to defend another creature. Regardless of personal cost, the Shadow Maw head tilted to one side as it processed this unprecedented situation. Its entire evolutionary programming centered on the principle that smaller creatures yielded to larger ones. Yet this tiny human showed every sign of being willing to fight to the death over a member of a completely different species. Lisa managed to reach her equipment pack and pulled out a pulse rifle designed for taking down large predators. She powered up the weapon and took careful aim, but Maya waved her off without breaking eye contact with the Shadow Maw. The human woman seemed determined to handle this confrontation through willpower alone. Gate finally got the emergency beacon working and sent out a distress signal toward the main colony. She knew help would take at least 2 hours to arrive, which meant they had to survive this encounter using only their current resources. She grabbed her own sidearm and moved to support. Lisa positioned. Maya continued her stream of defiant words while slowly backing toward Lirelei. She maintained the plasma torch between herself and the predator, while never showing any sign of submission. Her voice carried the tone of someone who had made peace with dying but refused to yield an inch of ground. The Shadow Maw circled left, trying to get around Maya's defensive position, but she rotated to match its movement. Every time it shifted direction, she moved to block its path to Lirelei. The predator began to realize this human would not be distracted or intimidated into abandoning her protective stance. Through the telepathic link, it started receiving flashes of Maya memories. Images appeared of humans fighting hopeless battles to defend wounded comrades and mothers lifting impossible weights to save trapped children. The creature saw soldiers holding defensive positions against overwhelming odds, just to buy time for others to escape. These memory fragments made no sense. From a survival perspective, natural selection should have eliminated such self-destructive behavior millions of years ago. Yet this species had somehow turned protection of others into a survival advantage rather than a weakness. Lisa activated her targeting system and prepared to fire if the creature made any aggressive move toward Maya. The pulse rifle held enough energy to punch through most armor, but she worried about hitting Maya in the crossfire. The human woman stood directly in the line of fire while refusing to retreat. Kate established communication with the colony defense force and transmitted their coordinates. Military dropships were already launching, but the forest canopy would make landing difficult. Ground forces would have to approach on foot, which added time to their response. The Shadow Maw made several quick feints toward Lirelei, testing Maya resolve. Each time the human woman shifted to block its path, while maintaining her defensive position. She never looked away from its eyes, and never stopped her continuous stream of challenging words. Lirelei began to recover from her initial shock, as Maya's courage gave her strength. Through her telepathic abilities, she sensed the predator growing uncertainty about this encounter. The creature had expected easy prey, but instead found something that defied all its hunting experience. Maya's plasma torch began running low on power, but she continued, wielding it like a sword between herself and the Shadow Maw. Sweat ran down her face from the combination of fear and physical exertion, but her voice never wavered. She had decided to make her stand here, and nothing would change that decision. The predator stopped circling and studied this strange human who showed every sign of preferring death to retreat. In its racial memory were vague warnings about species that formed pack bonds strong enough to override individual survival instincts. Most creatures that challenged such groups had learned to blade about the consequences. Lisa heard the distant sound of approaching aircraft, but knew they were still many minutes away. She kept her rifle trained on the Shadow Maw, while admiring Maya's incredible display of protective courage. The small human woman was holding off 12 feet of apex predator through nothing but determination and attitude. The creature took one step backward as primitive instincts, older than intelligence, began to override its hunting drive. Something deep in its genetic programming recognized the danger of attacking pack-bonded species who valued group survival over individual safety. The Shadow Maw faced a decision that would determine whether it found easy prey or triggered a war it could not win. The Shadow Maw continued, backing away while its predatory instincts battled against deeper evolutionary warnings. Through millions of years of successful hunting, it had learned to recognize dangerous situations. This small human presented a threat, unlike anything in its experience, and every ancient survival mechanism urged caution. Maya maintained her defensive position with the plasma torch held steady between herself and the massive predator. Her voice had grown hoarse from continuous talking, but she kept up her stream of defiant words. She knew showing any weakness now might trigger another attack attempt. Lisa adjusted her grip on the pulse rifle while tracking the creature movements through her targeting system. The weapon remained fully charged and ready to fire, but Maya continued blocking her clear shot. She admired the human woman's courage while wishing she had better tactical options. Through Lirelei telepathic connection, the Shadow Maw received more fragments of human memory. It saw images of pack hunters working together to bring down larger prey through coordinated attacks. The species had evolved complex social structures that emphasized group survival over individual advantage. Kate monitored the communication frequency while providing updates to the approaching rescue force. Military dropships were still 15 minutes away, but ground units had begun moving through the forest on foot. She estimated another 10 minutes before armed soldiers reached their position. The predator began circling again but maintained greater distance this time. Its yellow eyes never left Maya while it processed the implications of what it had learned through the telepathic link. These humans formed bonds with creatures from completely different species and defended them as family members. Maya tracked the creature movement while keeping herself between it and Lirelei. Her legs ached from maintaining the defensive stance, but she refused to show any sign of fatigue. The plasma torch power indicator showed less than 5 minutes of fuel remaining, but she continued wielding it like a weapon, The Shadow Ma paused near a large tree and extended its claws to scrape deep gouges in the bark. This behavior served as both a threat display and a way to relieve nervous tension. The predator had never encountered prey that confused its hunting instincts so completely. Through the mental link, it began accessing deeper layers of human racial memory. Images appeared of early humans defending cave entrances against much larger predators while protecting their young. The species had survived by forming alliances and sharing resources rather than relying on individual strength. Lirelay started, providing Maya with telepathic updates about the creature's emotional state. The Shadow Ma felt frustrated and uncertain rather than hungry or aggressive. Its normal hunting patterns had been completely disrupted by encountering behavior it could not understand or predict. Lisa heard movement in the forest behind them and turned to see armed figures approaching through the trees. The colony's security team had arrived ahead of schedule using fast deployment techniques. She signaled their position while keeping her weapon trained on the predator. The detected the approaching humans through scent and vibration. Its head turned toward the new arrivals while calculating how the tactical situation had changed. What had been a simple hunting scenario now involved multiple armed humans working as a coordinated group. Maya noticed the creature's attention shift and pressed her advantage by taking 2 steps forward. She raised the plasma torch higher while increasing the volume of her challenging words. The predator immediately refocused on her while backing away another few feet. Through the telepathic link, the creature accessed memories of human military tactics. It saw images of soldiers using advanced weapons and coordinated strategies to defeat much larger forces. This species had turned intelligence and cooperation into tools more effective than natural weapons. Kate established direct communication with the security team and began providing tactical information about the Shadow Maw's size and capabilities. She warned them about its armored hide and natural camouflage while requesting they avoid actions that might trigger renewed aggression. The predator moved to a position where it could observe both Maya group and the approaching soldiers. Its tactical awareness recognized the trap that was forming around its position. Continuing the hunt would now require fighting an entire pack of armed humans rather than taking down isolated prey. Lisa saw team leader Amanda Foster emerge from the tree line with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. They carried weapons designed specifically for dealing with large predators, including net launchers and neural disruptors. The odds had shifted dramatically in favor of the humans. Maya felt her strength beginning to fade as adrenaline levels dropped, but she maintained her protective stance. The plasma torch flickered as power ran low, but she kept it positioned between herself and the Shadow Maw. Her voice had become barely more than a whisper, but she continued speaking. The creature studied the tactical situation with the calculating intelligence that had made its species apex predators. Multiple armed humans surrounded its position, while more arrived every minute. The small meal it had originally targeted now carried the potential cost of fighting an entire military unit. Through Lirelay telepathic abilities, it sensed the emotional bonds connecting the human group. They showed the same protective instincts toward each other that Maya had demonstrated toward the soldiers. Attacking any member would trigger violent responses from all the others. Amanda Foster raised her hand to signal her team to hold position while she assessed the standoff. She had received Maya instructions to attempt peaceful contact before using weapons. The creature showed signs of intelligence that suggested communication might be possible. The Shadow Maw made its decision based on millions of years of evolutionary programming. Successful predators learned to recognize situations where the potential costs exceeded the possible benefits. This hunt had transformed from simple prey gathering into a complex tactical scenario with unpredictable outcomes. It took several more steps backward while maintaining eye contact with Maya. The gesture clearly indicated withdrawal from aggressive intentions while showing respect for her protective courage. The predator had acknowledged her right to defend her pack members. Maya slowly lowered the plasma torch, but kept it ignited as a precautionary measure. Her voice had given out completely, but she continued maintaining her defensive position. She would not retreat until the creature showed clear signs of abandoning its attack. Lisa gradually lowered her rifle, while keeping it ready for immediate use. The tactical situation remained dangerous, but the Shadow Maw body language suggested it was reconsidering its hunting plans. She signaled the security team to maintain their perimeter, but avoid provocative actions. The predator settled into a sitting position near the forest edge, while continuing to observe the human group. This behavior indicated it had abandoned immediate hunting plans, but remained curious about these strange creatures that protected other species as family members. Kate re-established communication with the colony command center and reported that the immediate crisis appeared to be resolved. The creature had backed down from direct confrontation, but continued monitoring their activities. She requested guidance on how to proceed with first contact protocols. Through the telepathic link, Lirelei sensed the Shadow Maw shifting from predatory focus to genuine curiosity. It wanted to understand how a species that formed protective bonds with aliens had become so successful at survival and expansion across multiple worlds. Maya finally allowed herself to sit down while keeping the plasma torch active. Her legs shook from exhaustion and nervous tension, but she felt satisfaction at having successfully protected her friend. The standoff had ended without violence despite facing impossible odds. The Shadow Maw remained in its sitting position, while Amanda Foster approached with careful, measured steps. The security team leader had dealt with dangerous predators before, but never one that showed signs of complex intelligence combined with voluntary restraint. She carried a translation device that might enable basic communication. Maya struggled to stand as exhaustion finally caught up with her body. Lisa moved quickly to provide support while keeping her weapon ready for immediate use. The plasma torch finally flickered out as its power cell died, but the immediate threat seemed to have passed. Amanda activated the universal translator and directed it toward the massive predator. The device began analyzing the creature vocalizations and body language while building a basic communication framework. She spoke in slow, clear tones about peaceful intentions and mutual understanding. The Shadow Maw tilted its head while listening to the translated words. Its yellow eyes showed recognition of the communication attempt, even though the concepts being discussed were foreign to its experience. Through Lirelei telepathic connection, it sensed genuine curiosity rather than fear from the human leader. Kate worked to establish better communication links with the colony, while documenting everything about this unprecedented first contact situation. Her equipment recorded both audio and visual data that would be analyzed for years to determine how humans had managed to avoid violence with an apex predator. Lirelei began serving as an intermediary between the two species, using her telepathic abilities to bridge the gap between human speech and Shadow Maw mental communication. She relayed emotional context and basic concepts while both sides worked toward mutual understanding. The creature started making low, rumbling sounds that the translator interpreted as questions about human behavior during the confrontation. It wanted to understand why Maya had been willing to die protecting a member of a different species, rather than saving herself through retreat. Amanda explained human pack bonding instincts while gesturing toward the research team. She described how humans formed emotional connections with other intelligent species and considered them part of their extended family groups. These bonds triggered protective responses, identical to those used for genetic relatives. Through the telepathic link, the Shadow Maw shared images of its own species, social structure. They were largely solitary hunters who competed with each other for territory and resources. Cooperation occurred only during mating seasons, and parent-young relationships ended when offspring reached maturity. Maya found strength to participate in the communication attempt despite her exhaustion. She explained Through gestures and simple words that Lyriel had become her friend through shared experiences and mutual respect. The concept of friendship across species barriers seemed to fascinate the predator. The creature began sharing its own memories of observing human colonies over the past several months. It had watched humans rescuing injured animals and sharing resources with other species. This behavior made no sense from a survival perspective, yet humans thrived wherever they established settlements. Lisa gradually relaxed her defensive posture as the conversation continued. The Shadow Maw showed no signs of renewed aggression while demonstrating clear intelligence and communication abilities. She began to wonder if they had discovered a new potential ally rather than just another dangerous predator. Amanda learned that the creature had been testing human responses to determine if they posed a threat to its territory. The realization that humans fought for protection rather than conquest had completely changed its threat assessment. It no longer viewed them as competition for resources. Through Lyriel, the Shadow Maw revealed it had been watching their research activities with growing confusion. Humans seemed to study local ecosystems in order to avoid disrupting them, rather than simply taking whatever resources they needed. This approach differed from every other species it had encountered. Kate discovered that the creature possessed extensive knowledge about local predator species and territorial boundaries. It offered to share information about dangerous areas in exchange for medical supplies and protection of its own young from other threats in the region. The translator gradually improved its ability to convert Shadow Maw vocalizations into understandable concepts. The creature explained that it had initially viewed Lyriel as easy prey due to her small size and apparently fragile nature. Maya's protective response had forced it to reevaluate human capabilities and intentions. Amanda realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. First contact situations typically involved either conflict or formal diplomatic protocols. She had never heard of predator species voluntarily abandoning hunts in order to understand potential prey behavior. The Shadow Maw stood and moved closer, while maintaining non-threatening body language. It wanted to examine Maya more closely to understand how such a small creature had generated enough intimidation to stop its attack. The predator showed genuine respect for her protective courage. Maya allowed the creature to approach, while Lisa maintained overwatch position. The massive predator lowered its head to study the human woman who had defied millions of years of evolutionary programming. Its yellow eyes showed curiosity rather than hunger. Through telepathic contact, the creature shared its confusion about human expansion patterns. Other species conquered territory through force, or claimed resources through superior technology. Humans seemed to invite local species to join them as partners, rather than subjects or competitors. Lyriel explained that human colonies succeeded because they formed alliances with native species who provided local knowledge in exchange for protection and advanced technology. This cooperative approach created stronger settlements than those built through conquest or isolation. The Shadow Maw began to understand that humans represented a completely different type of intelligence than it had previously encountered. They had weaponized cooperation and turned emotional bonds into survival advantages. This strategy had proven more effective than traditional predatory approaches. Amanda proposed a formal alliance between the human colony and local Shadow Maw population. She offered medical care and protection from other threats in exchange for territorial information and assistance with dangerous wildlife management. The creature showed clear interest in these terms. Kate documented the historic agreement while maintaining communication with colony leadership. The implications of this successful first contact would influence human expansion policies for decades. They had proven that peaceful cooperation was possible, even with apex predators. Lisa provided security while the negotiation continued, but her role had shifted from combat readiness to protective escort. The situation had transformed from life-threatening crisis to diplomatic breakthrough through Maya, courage, and human adaptability. The creature accepted the Alliance proposal with what the translator interpreted as satisfaction. It had found a solution that eliminated threats to its territory, while providing benefits for its offspring. The Shadow Maw had discovered that cooperation could be more valuable than competition. Maya smiled as she realized her moment of protective instinct had created the foundation for interspecies cooperation. The predator that had threatened to kill Lirelei was now discussing plans to guard human research teams from other dangerous predators in the region. The Shadow Maw made a gesture that Lirelei interpreted as a formal acknowledgement of Maya courage and leadership. The creature had developed genuine respect for humans who were willing to risk their lives, protecting adopted family members from other species. As the sun began to set, Amanda organized the return journey to the colony with their new ally providing escort through dangerous territory. The creature that had planned to hunt them now served as their guardian during the trek back to civilization. 6 months after the first encounter between humans and the Shadow Maw population, life on Kepler 442b had transformed in ways nobody could have predicted. The research station that had once required military protection now operated under the watchful guard of apex predators, who had voluntarily become protectors instead of threats. Maya walked through the expanded colony compound while reviewing reports from survey teams across the planet. Her official title was now Director of Interspecies Relations, but her real job involved managing relationships between 3 very different intelligent species who had somehow formed a functional alliance. The morning briefing included updates from Lirelei, who had become fluent in both human expressions and Shadow Maw communication patterns. The young Silvani woman had grown more confident over the months as her telepathic abilities proved essential for bridging cultural gaps between the allied species. Their newest team member stood nearly 12 feet tall and communicated through a combination of vocalizations and telepathic impressions. The translator had designated it as Thoughtful Hunter of Swift Prey, though most humans simply called it Hunter. The massive predator had appointed itself as unofficial guardian of the research teams. Kate supervised the communication center that now coordinated activities between human colonies, Silvani settlements, and Shadow Maw territories across the planet. Her equipment handled translation duties for 3 completely different forms of communication, while managing logistics for joint operations. Lisa had developed new security protocols that emphasized protection over aggression, following her training sessions with Shadow Maw hunters. The massive predators taught humans about territorial awareness, while learning about cooperative defense strategies that protected group members rather than eliminating threats. Amanda Foster reviewed expansion plans that incorporated input from all 3 species about optimal settlement locations. The human colony had grown from a small research outpost to a thriving community that served as a model for peaceful interspecies cooperation. The Alliance had produced unexpected benefits for everyone involved. Shadow Maw knowledge of local predators had eliminated most threats to human and Silvani settlements. Human medical technology had dramatically improved survival rates for Shadow Maw young. Silvani telepathic abilities enabled communication between species that would otherwise be impossible. Maya visited the education center, where human children learned alongside young Silvani and juvenile Shadow Maws in specially designed classrooms. The mixed species curriculum included courses on protective instincts, cooperative behavior, and the importance of defending those who could not protect themselves. Hunter accompanied Maya during her daily rounds through the colony compound. The massive predator had developed protective instincts toward humans that resembled their own pack bonding behavior. It considered the entire colony to be part of its extended territory, requiring defense against outside threats. Lirelei worked in the research laboratory, where she coordinated telepathic communication between scientists and test subjects from various local species. Her abilities allowed researchers to understand animal behavior patterns without causing stress or harm to the creatures being studied. The success of the Kepler 442b Alliance had attracted attention from the Galactic Council, who wanted to study human expansion techniques. Other species were amazed that humans had managed to turn apex predators into willing allies through nothing more than protective instincts and emotional bonding. Kate received daily reports from human colonies throughout the galaxy, describing similar developments with local predator species. The patterns seemed consistent across different worlds and environments. Exposure to human protective behavior often caused predators to reconsider their relationship with potential prey species. Lisa documented cases where shadow maws had abandoned hunts after observing humans defending other creatures. The predators seemed programmed to avoid conflicts with species that showed strong pack-bonding instincts. This discovery was revolutionizing interspecies contact protocols across human space. Amanda worked with colonial administration officials who were developing new settlement policies based on the Kepler-442b model, instead of establishing military colonies that conquered local territories. Humans were learning to create cooperative communities that invited native species to join as partners. The research data showed that human colonies, using cooperative approaches, had lower casualty rates, higher success rates, and better long-term stability than traditional military settlements. The strategy of adopting local species as family members had proven more effective than conquest or domination. Maya reviewed communication from the Galactic Council, expressing interest in establishing formal diplomatic relations with the human-Sylvani Shadowmaw alliance. The unprecedented cooperation between such different species had created a new model for interstellar civilization. Hunter provided security during diplomatic meetings while demonstrating that former predators could serve constructive roles in interspecies society. Its presence reminded visitors that humans had somehow convinced apex predators to abandon hunting in favor of protection duties. Lirelei served as cultural liaison between the Alliance and visiting diplomatic missions. Her telepathic abilities allowed her to sense the emotional reactions of other species to human cooperative behavior. Most visitors showed amazement, followed by cautious interest in forming similar relationships. The education program had expanded to include visiting students from other worlds who wanted to study cooperative interspecies behavior. Young beings from dozens of different species learned together about the benefits of forming emotional bonds across genetic boundaries. Kate managed communication networks that now connected hundreds of human colonies with their local alien partners. The system facilitated resource sharing, defensive coordination, and cultural exchange between species that had never communicated before. Contact with humans. Lisa trained security teams for other colonies using techniques developed through cooperation with Shadowmaw hunters. The new protocols emphasized protecting Alliance members rather than eliminating potential threats. This approach had proven more effective at preventing conflicts. Amanda received reports that predator populations on other human worlds were showing similar behavioral changes when exposed to human protective instincts. The pattern suggested that pack-bonding behavior triggered evolutionary responses in species that had never encountered such cooperation. The colony now hosted research teams studying the psychological and biological mechanisms behind interspecies pack bonding. Scientists wanted to understand how humans had accidentally created a new form of civilization based on adoptive family relationships rather than genetic or political connections. Maya walked through the recreation area where humans, Sylvani, and young Shadowmaws played cooperative games designed to strengthen emotional bonds between the species. The sight of children from 3 different worlds learning to protect each other represented the future of interstellar civilization. Hunters settled near a group of human children who had adopted it as a protective guardian. The massive predator that had once viewed humans as potential prey now considered them precious family members, worthy of defending against any threat. Lirelei joined Maya at the observation deck, overlooking the expanded colony. Through her telepathic senses, she could feel the emotional connections that bound the 3 species together in ways that transcended traditional alliances or treaties. The evening report to the Galactic Council included updates on 17 other worlds, where humans had successfully established cooperative relationships with local predator species. The expansion of adoptive pack bonding was creating a new type of interstellar civilization based on emotional connections rather than military conquest. As the sun set over Kepler-4 to be Maya, reflected on how a moment of protective instinct had transformed an entire planet. The predator that had spotted Lyrile as an easy target had given up hunting in favor of joining the strangest family in galactic history. Humans had once again proven that their greatest weapon was not technology or firepower, but their stubborn insistence on treating everyone they met as potential family members worth protecting.